Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Maureen O'Connor from Quilters Heaven in Northbrook, Illinois, and I am the Opinionated Quilter. Today's episode, number 132, is how to choose a pattern for a particular fabric you'd like to use. Normally, we do the opposite. Normally, we choose a pattern we'd like to make, and then you have to choose fabric for it. Pin Cut Sew recently did an episode on choosing fabric, and I agree with much of what she says. We also did an episode on choosing fabric for quilts, and it was one of our most popular episodes ever. If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend you watch it. We'll post the link below. Let's get to it. Why does this happen? I boil this down to one particular thing, and that is buying fabric without a purpose. It can be you've gone to the quilt shop and you see a jelly roll that you just absolutely love, or a layer cake, or a bundle of fat quarters, or that focus fabric that you think is the most beautiful thing in the world and there's never going to be anything else ever made as beautiful, and you buy 3 or 4 yards of it. And you come home with these items and they go on your shelf and they sit there and they sit there. And then sometimes you never make anything with it. We've all seen that happen. So, what can you do to use these fabrics that you have made a purchase without a purpose? Sometimes it's not you making the purchase without a purpose. Sometimes you inherit someone else's. Your girlfriend's mother passes away or is downsizing and moving into assisted living. Your friend doesn't sew. She knows you sew. She gives you all her mother's fabric. All that stuff you get, with the exception of scraps, because we all produce scraps. All the large pieces or precuts that you get were all purchases without a purpose, just from someone else instead of you. So, let's try to use some of those. And how do you do it? You start with figuring out a pattern that will work with what you have. So let's start with the 2 easiest. The easiest is precuts. There are so many options out there. There are books about jelly rolls. There are books about layer cakes. There are a gazillion patterns that use fat quarters. So you can start looking through those. What I would suggest to keep your scrap pile as minimal as possible is look for low waste patterns. Some time ago I made a layer cake pattern. Benartex had given me one of their layer cakes, and I saw a pattern that I liked how it looked. Well, I made it before I reviewed actually how you cut the pieces, and there was a big, good, at least a 4-inch hunk of fabric from every single layer cake square. And so that's actually still in one of my scrap bins. It still has not been used. So look for something that uses the whole layer cake or whole jelly roll. Oftentimes in layer cake patterns you will also see it uses 28 10-inch squares. Well, the layer cakes come 40 or 42, so that's a lot to waste. With a jelly roll, you don't want to use 32 of them. There's 40 in there. Look for things that use the whole pre-cut. And I also always look for minimal additional fabric. I want to use something that's the layer cake or the jelly roll, not having to add 2.5 yards of some background fabric. So that's my suggestion on the precuts. And again, that's the easiest one. Large prints. That's the next category. Oftentimes we buy these large prints. They can be so gorgeous and you don't want to cut them up. So what can you do? I have a few suggestions. This one here behind me is Town Square from Fabric Cafe, and this is a 15-inch block. What we originally did in the shop when we had a big print was Sweet and Simple with a lime twist. It's the exact same block, but a 12-inch version. And it's so nice because you only really need 3 fabrics, the focus, and then 2 coordinating that go with it. You can add borders that are different if you like, or repeat these. But if you have a beautiful large print you don't want to cut up, this is a great way to use it. And you might even find in your stash something that will go with it. And if you don't, maybe you have one, so you can go to the shop and buy something that will fill in one spot instead of having to purchase everything for a whole quilt. That's one option. This one here is the one I've done a zillion times from Ursula Reich's Quilts for Baby. And it doesn't always have to be a baby quilt. You could do adult themed fabric, and instead of doing 2 by 3, you could do 3 by 4, 4 by 5, make 20 blocks, make 30 blocks, make 42 blocks, however big you want to make it. And you can also alter the size of the squares. This is a framed one patch. Here's the frame, which in this particular pattern, you really need a frame to bridge between the 2 prints here. But you could also do just a one patch, just this and then a sashing and cornerstone. So you could do something really easy that would use your print and not have to cut it up. The next thing I have listed here is a 4 patch with alternate block, but that could be any block. It doesn't have to be a 4 patch. A 4 patch just makes it easy because it's, again, just 3 fabrics. But say you had a bunch of scraps that went with your main quilt. Here I show, I'm saying a 4 patch, and then this is your focus fabric here and on. But this could be anything. This could be a sawtooth star if you like making those. It could be a pinwheel. It could be anything you want if you have the fabrics in your stash that go with the focus fabric. It's another idea. The last one I want to show you are the BQ patterns from Maple Island Quilts. They have this whole line of fabrics, patterns. I think it goes up to 4 now, that they all have these large pieces in here that would be great to use for a big print that you don't want to cut up. So those are the easy ones. Give me a second. We're going to move on to the more difficult. Now you have a random piece of fabric that you bought for no particular reason, and you really want to use it because you absolutely love it. How do you come up with a pattern? Well, this is not an exact science. You start with laying your fabric out somewhere on your table, and you see what other fabric you have in your stash with it, that goes with it. And I want to clearly say, not match. The colors don't have to match exactly what's in your focus fabric. It has to look nice with it, go with it. And you pull out everything that could possibly work. And then you need to look at or think about projects you've made before or projects your friends have made, and think about what might work with it. You can go to the patterns you've made. I don't know if all of you do this, but I put my patterns that I've used in a binder. And I shouldn't say a binder. This is just 3 of a few more than 3 binders of patterns that we've made here, or I've made prior to having the shop. And sometimes it's just pictures printed off of the internet. You can just go through your binders, or maybe you have a box that you go through of patterns that you've made. You can also go through block tools, which we've shown these on here before, where they have all different blocks. And the size of what you can make is really just determined by how much fabric you have. If this piece you want to use is very small, you might only be making a table runner. You might be making a small wall quilt. If you have that 3 or 4 yards I talked about at the start of the video, you could be making a large quilt. You need to just find something that you want to make, that you have some things to go with it. And very oftentimes, this is when you do need to go to the shop and buy maybe 1 or 2 other things, depending on the size of your stash. But it's kind of a fun process, even though it's not the easiest. But you just look for things that go together and make something that you enjoy making, and use that fabric. I can't say enough about using the stuff that you bought and making something beautiful out of it. And again, it's not an exact science. What I'd like to do now is show you a quilt, a top that I pieced, that I had to come up with a pattern for fabric that I wanted to use. This is Dit Dot by Jason Yenter from In the Beginning Fabrics. And I ordered these fabrics for the shop because I thought they're so beautiful for baby quilts. We always have really cute focus fabric for baby quilts, but we always seem to need to be looking for go-withs. So that was my initial reason to purchase these fabrics. And when they came in, I just thought they were such lovely colors that I wanted to make something with them to feature the fabric. And like I've said before, I don't want to have to add a whole bunch of background or anything from the shop. So I kept thinking about a pattern and thinking about a pattern, and I just couldn't come up with anything. And it's funny how some things just hit you. It was cold in my bedroom the other night, and I took a quilt off a stack of quilts that are on a chair in the room, and I put the quilt on my bed. And the quilt below it, that now I could see, that I wasn't able to see before, was this quilt. And I hope you can see it a little bit at least. Let me hold it up. So it's from Tradition with a Twist, which we've shown that book also several times over the last couple of years that we've had the YouTube channel. And it all of a sudden dawned on me. I said, Sunshine and Shadows, or some people call it Trip Around the World. In the Tradition with a Twist book, it is called Sunshine and Shadows. And there it is. I did it without any additional fabric. I did make it smaller. In the pattern, it has you cut 2.5 inch to finish to 2. This is cut 2 to finish to 1.5. And right now I'm kind of deciding if I'm going to put a border on it or just leave it as it is, quilt it and bind it. But I just think it's so sweet. And, you know, sometimes it takes a while for you to come up with an idea. But you will eventually, something will hit you, and you'll eventually come up with something. So I'm quite pleased with how it turned out. I do love the strip piecing, so I had a lot of fun making it. So now it's time to announce the winner of the Christmas quilt that I showed last week and announce a new giveaway. The winner of the Christmas quilt is Rita Niemeyer 4401. So it's RITANIEMEYER 4401. So please send me your mailing address to quiltersheaveninc@gmail.com, and I will get that quilt top out to you. This week's giveaway is very apropos for the subject matter. I have for you 3 items that I bought without a purpose. And rather than have them sit on a shelf and do nothing, I'm hoping one of you out there will embrace these pieces of fabric and do something with them. I have a 10-inch square assortment. It's called Colors of Fall. These are all from Keepsake Quilting. I used to love to get that catalog, and I would go through it and everything be so beautiful, and I would just order stuff. Well, they're still here. So that's one thing. This one is called Knit 1 Purl 2 Medley. It's 6 fat quarter yard cuts in here. And the last one is a Keepsake Mystery Medley. So if you are game to take these pieces of fabric and turn them into something fun, I would love for you to have them. And if you'd like to enter to win, you need to like this video, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And in the comment, please write Maureen's purchase without a purpose, and you'll be entered to win. Thanks so much for watching. Until next time, happy sewing.